All right, well, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. I'm so excited for you guys to join us. And of course, we are recording this. We're going to be uploading it to our YouTube channel. So that will be up probably in the wee hours of the new year. So whenever it is that you're watching this, I hope that you're doing something fun tonight. Hope you're doing something safe. And for those of you that are with us live, thank you so much for spending time with us here. So I, first of all, want to say thank you. We are on the 7th. I think we're on the 7th day of the 12 days of Christmas. And as I start out every program, especially for any new listeners or any of you that are new with us, just to tell you a little bit about why I kind of came up with this. And I'll be interested to see maybe how Stephanie felt about this year's holidays. I don't know if she normally gets caught up in any of the rat race of, feeling like you need to make sure everybody knows that you're there and buy and support. And, I feel like every year I get to Christmas and I've barely done anything for myself, people on my list, and I don't really get a chance to enjoy the holiday or like fully embrace it. Thankfully, we have our holiday open house Thanksgiving weekend. That is my only attempt to like set up Christmas decorations. And usually because I'm scrambling, I never get that far, hence my undecorated Christmas tree behind me. So it's like I have this like half-hearted attempt as we get started. And then after that, it just kind of snowballs. And so this year, I thought I really wanted to try and find a way to continue or find a way for me to embrace that joy. And also, I feel like we get to Christmas and then it just like deflates after that, and even looking up to the new year and then after that. So when I started looking into the 12 days of Christmas, maybe I'm the only idiot that had no idea it was actually a thing. I have no problem admitting that whatsoever, and I actually thought it was like the 12 days leading up to Christmas. So of course, with a little bit of research, I'm like, this is perfect. And so hence the 12 days of Christmas was born, and not starting on the actual day of Christmas because who wants to zoom on then? So we are continuing this through January 6th. I've been so pleased about my lineup. My whole goal actually was really just to bring people on, first and foremost, that I love, adore, some people that I've worked with before, also to have a little diversity. Those of you that were with us, we even went off the trail of fiber and arts and crafts and had my friend Linda from Autumn Olive Farms, so kind of embracing more of my agricultural roots, and really also hoping to bring new people to the forefront, especially for my life community, people that maybe you're not aware of that I know of behind the scenes. And I think tomorrow night is going to be a perfect example of that. So I'm super excited. So with that, of course, as I was running down my list of people that I'm so thankful for that I've had an opportunity to be able to work with, but admittedly have to say, it's not like we spend a lot of time chopping it up. It's not like I really know a ton about you. I just know, though, that you're always so gracious. Every time I reach out, once I started originally, it was for the Neon Spring Floxy event that we did. And I remember I reached out to you and I was like, as soon as I saw that theme, you were immediately the first person that popped into my head. And from there, I think we've done maybe 2 others or 1 other. And you're always really good to just jump in there and be like, great, send whatever and get it done. And the results have always been wonderful. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. Especially, I thought nobody was going to want to Zoom with me on New Year's Eve. I figured most people were going to be like, what are you, crazy? Like, I've got things to do, or, we've got family over. So I was so stoked when you picked that. I'm like, this is awesome. So thanks for joining us, Stephanie.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And the collaborations have been a real blast for me, especially, having the opportunity to dye the type of fiber that you sell, which is so different from what I typically do. It's just really fun. So that's why I keep saying yes. And hopefully we've got another one brewing now.
Yep, I know. Yeah, well, we're definitely gonna talk about that, give little like sneak peeks. Of course, people will have to wait for it, but thank you for saying yes once again. So why don't you give a little background? Like if somebody is like, okay, you are Asylum Fibers, what is that? Where is that? Where did it come from? Obviously it's not your full-time job. So just tell us whatever you'd like us to know about you and Asylum Fibers.
Yeah. So I can tell a long story, and if we have an hour and a half, here we go. Okay. When I was born, my mom is on here. If you see Susan G in a pink top,
Oh
that's
my
my
God, that's
mom.
amazing.
Sorry to embarrass you, but not really that sorry. But so my mom is a quilter. So fiber and arts and crafts was always a part of my life from the time I was very young. Um, but I think I liked working with yarn more than anything else. So as much as, she's a beautiful quilter, it's like there's too many steps for me to have to take out, like the ironing board and the cutting mat. It's just like, it's too much. I like the portability of working with yarn, knitting and crocheting. So I went to school for music, and during that time, I
Oh,
didn't
that's
really,
right. I
yeah, I
forgot
didn't
all
really,
about that.
you forgot?
I honestly, I mean, like I said, I really did. Oh my gosh, maybe we'll get you to sing for
Yeah. Well, okay, we'll see about that. But I went to school for music. When I was in grad school, it was for opera. So you've probably, I think probably most of you have heard of a lot of like actors that knit. I mean, even like, Marilyn Monroe and Julia Roberts and like all these different actors and actresses who have picked up knitting or crocheting. I think part of it is because during rehearsals, there will be staging and you're not in every single scene. So there's a lot of downtime where you have to be available, but sitting on the side. And I'm not somebody that likes to have idle hands.
it.
So when I was in grad school, that's when I picked up yarn again, and I got into knitting and crocheting, just like, hats, scarves, very basic things. And when I finished grad school in 2011 and moved to the city, New York City, uh, I was trying to figure out how to make friends that were not coworkers. And being that I'm from Maine and then I went to school in Maine and in Connecticut, I didn't have a community of friends in New York yet. So I ended up joining meetup.com,
Yeah.
when that was like
Yeah,
new.
that was like a thing.
Yeah, and I joined a knitting circle. And that's how I learned about Rhinebeck being a thing. And that's how I learned about Vogue Knitting Live. And I got really into that stuff. And I took a lot of classes, and I ended up starting my own meetup group that just worked better with my work schedule. And I met a lot of my close friends through that. So the dyeing thing kind of stemmed out of all of that. I enjoyed teaching little workshops. If I went and took a brioche class and then felt like I was getting the hang of it, I might teach a little workshop to my meetup group on brioche. And so
Mhm.
the same thing happened with dyeing. And then I kind of felt like I had I had a massive stash already before I started dyeing. And then I had like another stash of yarn I had dyed. And I was, what am I going to do with all this yarn? Maybe if I put it online, somebody will want it, is kind of where it started. And I think I got really lucky that I had such a great community when I started that, and people showed up for me and people spread the word, and now it's a thing. So that was 6 years ago. It was February 2017 that I started the little business. And then this summer I was able to buy a house. And so now I
Yay,
have a much,
congratulations.
yeah, thanks. It's a big difference, big life change. But having this designated space to do this work in, rather than just having it take over my whole apartment, it's a better quality of life, but it's also like better for my creativity. The
Yeah,
fact that I get to live my life and sleep in a different space than where the yarn is at. You know what I mean? Then
yeah.
when I come down here, it's like I'm really into it. So yeah.
Now, does it allow you to do, I mean, oh my gosh, I have so many questions already, but does that allow you, because didn't you, I mean, you still do it on your stove, yes or no?
No, no.
Okay, but is that what you did in the apartments?
So there have been 3 living situations since I started. The first one, I was in a studio apartment. This is in Queens, Rego Park, like Rego Park, Forest Hills line. Um, and in that apartment, I did use the stovetop, and I hung the yarn on my curtain rod in the bathroom.
Uh-huh.
And my dad made me a wood drying rack with 8 dowels. So between that and the curtain rod in the bathroom, that's where the yarn would dry. I ended up, I think mom was horrified when she came to visit me because I ended up lofting my bed in probably not the safest manner so that I could store boxes of yarn under it.
Uh-huh.
And so down the hall, a one-bedroom apartment became vacant, and they weren't really good about locking the doors, so I might have just like snooped
Post
around,
it out.
you know, and I ended up taking the chance and applying for that apartment. And so by doing that, I then had my bedroom just being a bedroom, and I made it was like a one bedroom with a den, I think they would call it, and the den would really be where most people would put the table that they'd eat at. And then there's a door off of there to a little balcony. So it's great for ventilation. So I ended up in that apartment not having to use my stove. What I did is I got some tables. Initially I had folding tables, and then I got some stainless steel kitchen prep tables with induction burners.
Mhm.
And so I do the whole induction burner with the buffet pan
Yes,
for the
yes,
most part.
okay. Yep.
And then that was really nice because the only thing I needed to use from my kitchen was the sink for my water source and also to rinse off the yarn and stuff. But
So
not the
you're able,
stove.
even by that second step, that second, like this second living space, were you able to increase production a little bit in that way? Yeah, I would
Yep,
imagine.
yep. I basically got up to the point where I had three, but I could do 3 buffet pans at a time. And the thing that limited me the most, aside from space, was what the electricity could handle, because I'd be tripping the breaker like all the time. You have fans, you have the burners, and then there are only so many, I don't know electrical terms, but there are only so many of those thingies, right? So there's like
Right.
the stove and the refrigerator and like the lights, everything, the computers, and then during the pandemic with the work from home, it's like, okay, so I turned on an extra burner, and then I tripped the thing, and now all my computers turned off, and that was annoying. So that's one thing I don't have to deal with anymore. But now I'm on the basement level, which I don't have it's not a raised ranch, it's a ranch where like the garage is on the basement level.
Okay.
So
Oh, interesting.
like the garage is on the side.
Okay. Like kind of like it's almost like the house is on a hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now you're in Connecticut now, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I still have these aspirations of doing this full time, and so getting myself into probably a too small house in a too expensive area was not the right move for me. So coming up here made more sense, and especially with my family being in Maine, it shortens the drive for visiting and stuff like that. So I work my day job. I do HR. I actually just switched jobs
Oh,
um
I was just about to
within the
ask
past
you,
month.
what do you do?
Yeah.
Because
So
I knew you weren't doing that.
human resources and compliance at a financial company. Yeah. So that's what I do during the day. But when I went into my last job, that was like 2 months before I started the dyeing business.
Uh-huh.
When I was interviewing for this job, I brought it up in the interview process. I mean, it's on my LinkedIn account, like everybody can see it, right? But I brought it up. I also brought up I'm in 2 bands, and I wanted them to know I take my job seriously, but I also have a lot of things I want to do off hours. So
Right.
honestly, I wouldn't have made that move if that was going to be the kind of job where I was just going to have to be on call 24/7,
Right.
you know?
Right. Right.
So they're very accepting of all my eccentricities and weird things that I do on the weekend. They don't know how to talk to me about it yet. My boss said something to me on Wednesday. He's like, "Oh, so what are you doing for New Year's Eve?" And I was like, "Well, I'm doing like a little a social media thing for the yarn company." Like I didn't know how much detail he wants, and he goes, "Oh yeah, so do you call that sewing?" Like, kind of, but
I was gonna say, I mean, right? How many
yarn.
people? Yeah, well, people call it thread a lot of times, right? Like when
Yeah,
you talk to people that are in like non-yarn crochet community, they're like, "That's thread." You're like,
yeah.
kind of.
So Yeah, so I still commute into the city. It's an
Okay,
hour and a
that's what I
half
was
on the
just going to
train.
ask. So you're
Mhm.
still working in the city?
Yep. So the nice thing about the new job is that, at least for now, I'm going into the city 3 days and then I'm remote 2 days. So
Oh, cool.
on the days I'm remote, I can start dying a lot earlier. I
Yeah.
could start dying at like 5:30, 6 o'clock instead of, usually I get home at like 7:30, 8 o'clock when I go into the city for work.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, unfortunately, I know a lot of other people that commute into the city for work, and you seemingly, lose a lot of time in your day. I mean, in terms of the commute that's tacked on to then already, your work day. But obviously, because you said you take the train in, right?
Yeah, so it's really not bad, and it's
Yeah.
to me, it is a long commute, but it's worth it to be able
Yeah.
to come out to where the house is here and have this. And the town that I live in is really nice. The neighborhood, it's, sidewalk streets, everybody walks their dog, you meet everyone if you just
That's
go
nice.
stand outside for 10 minutes. So
Was it like a
um
little bit of, well, I guess it wasn't that much shock for you if you're originally from Maine. And so, I mean, you had that environment already. So it was kind of just a little bit of, even though you're in Connecticut, it's not like as if it's totally foreign to you compared to the city.
right, it's kind of like the halfway point, because
Yeah.
my parents live on a 16-acre field surrounded by trees, right?
Yeah.
But the town where I went to high school and my best friends were at was very similar to the town that I live in here.
Right, right.
And it's like it's quieter, but it's not as like as much wilderness as what I grew up in. It's a happy medium for me. I like it.
Cool. Now I got to go all the way back because I'm sure if I'm thinking this, other people are curious. So you went to school though for music,
Yes.
and because you said, did you say a doctorate or a master's or PhD?
I got a master's in opera performance.
Okay. And so I'm really curious, like you go to school for music, you're working in HR, you dye yarn on the side. What was your original thought when you went to school for music? Like, were you hoping, and not saying that you don't, because you just mentioned that you're in two bands.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm just curious, like, not to say that you can't make that a full-time job, but you went to school for that. You obviously are gifted, because now I'm like, oh my God, how could I forget that? Um, so it just seems like being so creative, it's interesting. And I'm sure this is why you do it on the side, that your job is not as creative. And obviously you need to fill that space with all the other stuff. But so where did the music go, or why did you choose to major in that, but yet not do that full time?
Yeah, so I should preface by saying that I didn't always want to major in music. I did start playing piano when I was 8 years old, and I did the musicals in high school, and I took some voice lessons, and I sang at church. But I wanted to be some sort of a doctor most of the time. I wanted to be an eye doctor or an orthodontist, or all the people that helped me coming up, basically. Because I was blind as a bat and had very crooked teeth. So those were the things that I aspired to be. And I think it was quite late in high school, like maybe junior year of high school. I had a church job where I did the music at a small church from 8th grade until I left the state, basically. And the minister there became kind of like an extra grandparent to me over that time. And he had very strong feelings about what I should do. And he felt that, I think what he actually said to me is, Stephanie, a lot of people can be book smart, but you have a gift from God, meaning the gift of music.
Mhm.
And somehow it set something in my brain, and I went, oh, wait, you can be a music major? And then my dad would say, you're going to work the rest of your life. You got to do something you love. So, yeah, it feels like it was a very last minute decision to go major in music. And what I thought I would do with it is my piano teacher and voice teacher from when I was a kid were a married couple, and they taught out of their home. And I did teach piano lessons to some of my little second cousins when I was in high school, and I liked doing that. And I would say that I was a lot better at playing piano than I was at singing. So my intention was to teach out of my home, both piano and singing lessons, mostly, to kids or like beginner level. And so I decided to go major in singing because I kind of had this arrogance that I could already teach piano. I didn't need, you know, whatever. So that was what I intended to do. But then when I was finishing up my bachelor's degree, the teachers at school, you know, they basically said it would be a shame for you not to continue on and go get your master's.
Mhm.
So I had no idea what to expect with that application process. Am I going to even get in anywhere? Because even if you're doing really well at a state university, you don't really like have an understanding of where you stand in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I think my last choice school, I did not accept me, and that was the first letter I got. So I immediately was like, oh no, I'm not going to get in anywhere. But then I did get accepted to some other really nice schools. So I ended up going to Yale for my master's. They had a very young music program. I think they received an endowment in like I think it was 2006 maybe. They got this endowment that allowed them to make the master's in music a tuition-free program, which
Oh,
obviously
wow.
drew a lot more talent to them. And so that was really ramping up the quality of their program.
Mhm.
And, you know, proximity to Maine, you know, Indiana was one of the other options that just felt like really far away.
Yeah.
Jacobs School of Music, it's a really good program. The teachers were thrilled, you know, would have loved for me to go there. It was better known at the time, but I wanted to go to Yale instead. So I did that. And Knit New Haven is the store that's there. That's where I bought the yarn that I eventually picked up during staging rehearsals.
Interesting. They actually carry my products.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
okay.
so what happened? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
so
I
no,
was
no, but
talking
that's
so
so
long,
like,
I forgot.
I mean, so why, I mean, and I don't mean to, I'm not, of course, trying to say like, why didn't you end up doing that as a career? I mean, I'm sure, but I'm always just curious because obviously you are super talented. So I'm just curious, like, you know,
Okay, yeah,
where
I
did
can
that
finish this
go?
up. So at Yale, the program was an opera performance program.
That's
So
crazy.
going there, I had to go there with the intention to be a performer. That's not really what I wanted long term for
Okay.
myself. It's a blast, trust me. I loved being in the shows. It's I had this crazy stage fright, but then I would get such a rush when I would have these performances.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be the kid that like I would sing the national anthem at the sporting events and I would have to like take a break to swallow my spit and my like anxiety before I could do the next phrase.
That's so
Um,
interesting. I have to say, not to interject. I mean, as much of the gift of gab that I have, which I know, um, when I was younger, I was super, super shy. And I mean, like deathly shy. I ended up flash forward, like I remember in high school taking public speaking because you kind of had to, but I was so shy. It was, I don't know, fourth or fifth grade, you get wrapped up in these like math presentations. I don't even remember what the heck it was, but I will never forget it. I was doing a math presentation on tessellations. Kind of cool. I only remember a little bit. It's basically like taking shapes that all interlock and, you know, like, so anyway. But you had to, it was just a classroom size. I mean, maybe there was like, you know, 20 kids in it. You had to get up in front of the room and give this presentation. I was so nervous to talk in front of this group that literally my throat closed up and nothing would come out. Like
oh.
nothing would come out. So I don't, and I don't even, I think I blacked out. Like I don't even remember. I mean, eventually, obviously I was able to give my presentation, but I literally remember like I had to go sit down. You know, they gave me an opportunity to sit down, like regroup myself. But that feeling of like, I'm not even faking it. Like literally my throat closed up. There was no words coming out whatsoever. So, you know, I can totally appreciate that. And it's just interesting that then I like forced myself to take public speaking in high school, which was still, I was super scared of it, but able to do it. So, you know, that fear I can totally understand. And for me, I will just throw in, I appreciate people that do like theater and theatrics. I'm perfectly fine. I could stand in front of a group of a million people if I'm talking about something I know. Don't ask me to not be me. Like I could never act, you know, I could never be a different
Yeah.
character. I actually helped behind the scenes in my senior year as like stage director and stuff, but that's so uncomfortable for me, as well, for whatever reason. So just wanted to, little point of like, I get it, and different people's fears and things like that.
Yeah. It's funny because it's almost like the opposite thing for me.
Really?
And in terms of the singing stage fright thing, if I'm myself, I'm nervous. If
Wow.
I get to be someone else, that person's the one making the mistake, not me.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
like majoring in music, I didn't grow up listening to opera. I showed up and that's just what they told me I was doing. And then I was very lucky to have, good teachers that got me to have that kind of to be able to sing with that type of sound.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Um, but then getting to be the character, I think, is what hooked me. I don't know. But what ended up happening is, I finished school, and it's not like I had this career of performances lined up in front of me. I mean, I had a couple, but um, I decided to move to New York City because at that point, New Haven's not that far from New York City. And I kind of thought if I go anywhere else, I'm going to settle down and I'm not going to come out and move to the city. So now is the time if I want to try it.
Mhm.
But of course I needed a job to pay rent, right? So I, at the time, had no idea how the job market really worked beyond like knocking on a door and asking if they were hiring. So I think at the time I ended up going on Craigslist, and I'm thinking like, what am I qualified to do? I don't know. Like I could be a secretary, I type. So I'm applying for random stuff on Craigslist, and a recruiter calls me, and I immediately thought it was a scam and they were going to want money from me. And then the woman explains to me, no, that, the companies pay us to find candidates to apply for these jobs and whatever. So that's how I ended up getting my first grown-up job in the city, which happened to be in a financial company. And that's why I'm in a financial company now. It's not something I sought out or anything like that, but I got the job as a receptionist and executive assistant, basically at like a hedge fund. I went over there and I felt like I was living some kind of cross between like Mad Men and Devil Wears Prada, and everything was just so foreign to me. Like just going through the I don't even know what you call them, the turnstile doors or whatever. Like you don't have that
Oh,
in
like
Maine.
at the hotels? Like, you mean like those
Like
kind
office buildings, and
of,
like
yeah,
working
yeah,
on the 30 something floor of a building is just so weird. For me it was
yeah.
like a massive adjustment for a couple years. And then there was this one, I don't know if it was maybe 3 years in, because I never intended to stay in the city long term, but like 3 or maybe 4 years in, I was coming back from Maine after visiting family for Christmas. And when I want to say that I was crossing a bridge or something. I was in a bus or something, and I just remember seeing the city at night and feeling like I was coming home, which sounds so corny, but yeah, that's what happened. And then I was like, shoot, I'm never going to be able to leave here, really. And so even moving to Connecticut, I still feel like I'm going into the city for work, and all of my adult friends are in the city, so I'm attached now.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
but thank God for that, because right, if that's what you're going to make your life, as you even said earlier, that I think like your mom or your dad said, like this is, your job is what you do or where you live, and so to be somewhere, like let's just say if you were like felt forced to live in the city, I guess is my point, and you couldn't feel connected to it, attached to it, or feel love for it, just think about how miserable
yeah,
you would be. Or people that are in jobs that they're not happy with or don't find a way to fulfill their creativity, their passions on the outside. I've been listening to a lot of things like that, like podcast related, where it's like, look, what we do for a job is really the majority of what we spend our waking days doing. You might as well do something you love
yeah.
and find a way to make it work. So what do you do with music now?
So, well, now, there was a period that music laid pretty low.
Okay.
I started the receptionist job. I had
Did you
those.
break up with it? Like Kimberly would say, she broke up with knitting for a little while. So did you break up with music for any reason, or you just kind of?
Honestly, a little bit. After grad school, other than the things I had lined up, and I did go do a few auditions, and honestly, going to do those auditions, those like soprano opera auditions, it's not fun. They're not nice. It's not that, okay, that's a huge generalization because there are some really nice. Devin Guthrie, if anybody on here knows her, she's a knitter, she's a soprano, she's amazing. But at the time, my experience going into those auditions, it was not one where everybody wanted each other to do well. It was absolutely, they're trying to play mind games and stress you out.
Wait, the
before
people
you
that
go.
are like the people you're auditioning to, or your competition?
The competition.
Well, I wouldn't be
It was
surprised about that.
the worst.
I mean, honestly, I feel like any of that audition kind of stuff, do you really think the person next to you is going to be like, go get him? I hope you get the job and not me. Like,
No, there's some communities, honestly, like the indie dyer community. I have not witnessed any of that nasty stuff. We're all different, and like why not, you offer something different to the, like you and I are not competing to sell yarn, you know what I mean? Like what,
yeah.
why have that? So I didn't like that experience, but I did kind of need a break, I think, because I felt a little defeated to have been pushed so hard in the performance direction, but then given like not really a lot of guidance, kind of like I had a lot of opportunity to sing for artist management people, like very lucky to sing for them, but they would say, that was a great audition. I really want to hear you when you're 35, which now I'm 35, but I've had this whole life between then and now. And yeah, so I took a little break from it. And then what ended up happening is actually my voice teacher that I mentioned from childhood, he passed away somewhat suddenly. And when I spoke to his wife, that was my piano teacher, she was telling me, even in his last moments, he was wanting her to remind his students to, find their joy and keep singing, keep doing whatever. I forget the exact words, but it made me feel kind of guilty and bad for having stepped back from it for so long. So I went all in and threw like a full recital of classical music. I think it was spring of 2016 I did that. And then there were a couple times that I would be asked to do an event or something like that. I wasn't going out, and I haven't been going out actively auditioning or anything, but unfortunately a lot of times it's like funeral singing, or sometimes weddings, sometimes fundraising events. But now today I'm in 2 bands that have nothing to do with opera, which is kind of cool and different.
Yeah, what bands, or like what's the music genre?
Yeah, so first there's a girl band. Like the 3 of us that met at work at the job I just left.
Okay.
One was a cruise ship singer, and she's like amazing with jazz and has a very deep, sultry voice. The other, she was a music major, a vocal major, but she ended up actually choreographing dance on Broadway and stuff like that. Very cool person. And so the 3 of us working at a bank essentially bonded very quickly. And we ended up singing for company holiday parties on a couple occasions. And then we decided, oh, we're going to go do some open mics and stuff, which is all we've done so far, is a couple open mics. Then the pandemic happened. And, so we've got probably like 30 songs that are like ready for an audience.
Cool.
But just no audience. We'll figure that out at some point. If you want to know any backstory, just feel free to read the chat, because Mom's keeping everybody updated over there.
I love it.
And what we sing, so they keep kind of calling us like folk 70s, but we do a pretty wide range of music. It's just that everything we're doing, it's acoustic. The 2 other girls play guitar, I play piano, and then the 3 of us sing. And so there's some songs where one of us is like the lead and the others do backup, and then there's some songs where all 3 of us are singing in harmony throughout.
Is there anywhere where people can listen to this? Like, have you guys created like an Instagram page or?
We have an Instagram. I'll put the Oh, by the way, I have a coupon code. I'm not here to sell yarn, but if
No, no, I
you
will,
happen to
yeah,
want some, I have a coupon code for today, tomorrow. So I had that all typed in. So I'm sending that over. Otherwise,
yeah,
it's
no worries. And we'll certainly, of course, get to that. So,
it's Girls in Trouble. It's girls with a Z because we have to be special. In Treble. That's on.
oh, wait, in
We have
treble,
Instagram and
treble, like Treble.
yep. So we're
Cool.
on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, great.
Okay. Then the other band, it's a new Pink Floyd tribute band.
Cool.
And
Oh my God, I was like addicted to Pink Floyd in high school. Like, I just have to, like, not to, but just to throw some funny stuff in. Like, that was back the first time when ripped jeans were like all in style. And I would like write like Pink Floyd verses and the songs like on my pants, because that was the other cool thing to do, was to, like, marker on your jeans and things. Oh my God, we're just two lost souls living in a fishbowl. That's like my favorite.
yeah.
Ah, awesome.
So yeah, that's it. We're called Floydian Trip. We just rehearsed Thursday night.
And
I
is
just put
that on Instagram as well?
Instagram, Facebook, and we have a website and a TikTok. We're like really overachieving with this one.
So what is the handle for Instagram? Or
It's Floydian Trip Band, I believe. I'm gonna double check. I think it says band in it.
all right, any of my lifers,
Yeah.
you guys have to send me this information afterwards, because I definitely want to look it up and I don't have a pen to write anything down. I don't want to be distracting, but that's super cool. So guys, make sure you go check it out. I can't wait to go listen. I'm assuming on both of those venues, there's recordings or things where we can, hear you guys singing and stuff.
Yeah, they're little video snippets.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that must keep you busy.
Uh-huh.
So I'm curious again, because like, okay, now you're dying in your spare time and now you have two bands in your spare time. You obviously have absolutely no spare time. Do you meet every week with each of these groups? And then wait. So now the Pink Floyd group, like, where are those people from?
So the guy that put the band together, I had met when I was in New Haven. So it had been like 12 years. We had in the summer between my 2 years of grad school, he and I and one of the other guys from the band played music in a rehearsal room, planned to do open mics. My voice teacher shut it down. Okay. So, I mean, fine. But, they remembered me because they were looking for a female who could sing high notes. Now, for those of you who know Pink Floyd, there's the one song of theirs called Great Gig in the Sky that has the female vocalist, and she is such a badass. I do not have that instrument. It's not in my body. So I'm going to sing that song. It's not going to sound like her at all. But they reached out to me, and then so there's 6 of us. So the 2 of them, and then myself and 3 other guys, and everybody has been like so committed from the get-go. I think our first rehearsal was in October.
Just this past October?
Yeah.
Oh, so
So
this
we've
one's super
just
new.
been practicing, but we are almost completely done with Dark Side of the Moon front to back.
Cool.
And we have a 15-minute medley that is so cool. Just the transitions from one song to the next, it's just very, very cool. That we have been working on. Like, we just went and played it the first time on Thursday, and we got through the whole thing on the first try, and it wasn't that bad because everybody's really committed to learning their stuff and showing
Right.
up prepared. And I think it's really hard to find that in a band with more than a couple people, that everybody is gonna be that dedicated. So I'm kind of hopeful that it'll
Cool.
kick butt.
Well, I feel like selfishly, when you guys get to a place where you are ready to, actually just right around the corner from my farm, I mean, I get it's a little bit of a travel, but like, it would be super cool. There's a place called Painters. It's actually where we got married, and they always have, like, they've got a huge following. There's like a ton of bands. They do a lot of cover bands. So I'm sure it's a bit of a stretch, but that would be amazing because I know the owner super well, and they've got an awesome little stage. And also, even from a knitting perspective, I keep saying I want to do like knitting brunches there because they have like a whole back room. It's the kind of place where you go and there's literally craft paper on the tables and like a thing of crayons, like just for regular dinner service, and there's art all over the walls. It's like a super cool place. So who knows, if you ever get to a place where you guys are traveling and doing that kind of stuff, let me know, because selfishly I would just be like, hit up Baz and be like, hey, you got to get this group in.
Yeah, so well, we rehearse up in I guess it's New Hartford, Connecticut. That's where the guy that put the band together, he just built a house, and he built this absolutely insane. If you go on the Instagram page, all of the videos that you'll see, that's in his basement. It's
Whoa.
ridiculous. Amazing rehearsal space. But the plan is that we would travel. We are all people who have day jobs and intend to keep their day jobs.
Yep.
Even if mine someday might just be dyeing yarn. But so we want to do fun gigs on weekends and holidays and stuff like that. So this audition that we're doing in February is it's called CRPA, and it's like the Connecticut Parks and Rec people. So we might get a couple summer gigs out of this one, but for the most part they're going to be booking for summer of 2024. But yeah, I'd love to get connected with
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know about everybody else, but I mean, to me, I think like this is the cool stuff, like getting to know people and getting to know backstories and just something about people, other than just the fact that you dye yarn and here's your yarn. And I mean, of course, now we're going to like segue to the yarn, but that's why I've been having so much fun with all of this. And I think that's why we keep going so long. And I texted you and, said, joking around to you, it's like, I could totally be that 3-hour podcaster because I am just completely excited about doing this. I always have so many questions. I'm always like so interested. So, and I think it's a story. That's the way I always look at it too, right? Like they're on here, they know you as like Stephanie of Asylum Fibers, but how much fun is it to be able to get to know other things about you and other interests, and it just makes for a full, like, well-rounded picture. And I think it allows people to feel connected to what we do, just the same as I share my animals and all of that kind of stuff. It, I think, makes it even that much more personable in terms of your yarn, like when people get to know you as a person and a personality and the other things that you do. But flash forward or to yarn content. So I'm curious, because I don't know this either, where did Asylum Fibers come from? Now I know there's been a bit of a transition, that's just a whole nother story, and that's fine, but like why Asylum Fibers? Like if somebody was to ask you what's your aesthetic, where did the name come from, what's your aesthetic, go.
Okay, so the name initially came from the fact that I was trying to stand out in a crowd. I didn't want any kitty cats and flowers. I wanted a name that was memorable, basically. And if you followed me for a while, you'll know when I started the business, I was starting with kind of a horror genre theme. I had a logo that was sort of like, it could be a blood splatter or a paint splatter, depending how you looked at it. So at the time I was watching American Horror Story, and the season was Asylum. And so I am into horror movies and stuff like that. And I thought that it was kind of an interesting play on the fact that for me, crafting is my safe place. It's my therapy. How many people talk about that, I knit so I don't kill people, or like, let's not literally, but so
Absolutely.
So I was trying to use a play on words, and that's how that all started out. And then I learned that was not going to work for everybody, and I definitely didn't have any intention of offending anybody. So I did decide to rebrand and remove the horror elements. But I didn't think that a change in name made sense because the name still I'm gonna, Jeanette, I'll answer you in a second about that. I don't, but I would like to. So the name still had the same meaning to me, and I just kind of eliminated anything that was going to make people feel alienated, because it was not my intention to go that route. So what I did is when I created my new logo, I was thinking about how a lot of times when I'm dyeing yarn, I'm doing it for the color first, not the project.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, mom can attest to this, I was really into coloring. I did all of those newspaper coloring contests and whatever. So I wanted the logo to have the name really clearly, because my first logo was not super
Yeah,
legible.
like
If
that
you didn't,
splatter. Yeah.
yeah, it was hard to make out the letters. And so if you
Yeah.
didn't know who it was already, I wanted the letters to be very clear. So I took these big block letters in like a coloring book style. And then I went into Photoshop, and in Photoshop, you have a little like suction thingy. You can suck the color off a picture. And I sucked colors off of pictures of my yarn that I'd already dyed. Cause now, making a logo for a business that you're already operating is very different than making one for something that you're just starting out.
Yeah.
So my old logo was red, and like, I can dye me in red, but it's not my thing. So I don't need my logo to be red. So I wanted my logo to be the colors of the yarn I actually enjoy dyeing. So I sucked out the colors and I scribbled over the block letters like I was coloring basically on the computer. And there's little like white specks where, it's not all filled in perfectly. And that's how I made the
I
new
am
logo.
not laughing at you, but your mom's commentating is like killing me.
I also appreciate how much Erin is really enjoying that.
Oh no, absolutely. Erin is awesome. And yeah, absolutely. But it's great.
Yeah,
So
Tracy's trying to show everyone the logo too, because she's got her countdown.
yeah, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy.
So now, I went in a different direction with the theme, and now it's just like my yarn is just what it is. Like the bases are just what they are. Merino DK. Okay, everybody knows what it is. You don't need to like remember that there's some funky name for it or anything like that. But I still like to use humor in some of my color names or be kind of like indirect about it.
Wait,
So
so let's go back though, because I really want to get a better understanding. If I was to say, because even if you flash back to the comment that we were talking about in terms of like competition amongst indie dyers, and everybody has their own perspective and everybody has their own, personality in their yarn. So still, like, if I was to say, like, what is Asylum Fibers? Meaning, what is your aesthetic? What makes you different? Not different, but what is you? What is Asylum Fibers in terms of looking at your yarn versus another indie dyer? Like, what can somebody expect? Like, what do you try to project through it?
okay, so color wise, I'm pretty bold with my colors. I don't really do subtle a whole lot. So neons, jewel tones, kind of like in your face colors. Now, I dye other stuff to complement them, but that's all that is really. Like if you're looking at some gray yarn, it's just there to be friends with the hot pink. It's not me. And in terms of bases, I think I pretty consistently choose to work with really soft yarn with very few exceptions. So most of my bases are superwash merino, or they might have a cashmere blend or be like a sock blend, which is kind of what makes it so fun when I dye your yarn, because it's so completely different.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you, and so with all due respect, because I'm not sure how much people hold tight where they get their bases from. I mean, I understand in terms of the like indie community that there's very few, there's not like a lot of choices. So I think again, it's about what you put in that base yarn that sets you apart. But from somebody who's not from that world, do you have a lot of choices in terms of the blend of your base? Because again, I'm not asking you to share anything you don't want to share. Just I'm interested to understand that world, because that's not my world. I make my own yarn. So I have no idea like how it works on your end. Like, do you like click and point because it's basically like there's a company and this and this is what they offer and you get to pick from that? I have no idea. Like I make my own blends.
Yeah, so I'm not, I guess, I don't know. What I was going to say is I'm not big enough to be working with a mill on making my own yarn like some of my friends do. Like Kelsey from Primrose, like, does all kinds of
Right.
awesome large
Yes.
scale stuff. So yeah, I am buying from the same
Mhm.
people that a lot of indie dyers are buying from. There is one company, they're based in Virginia, and they get most of their yarn from Peru. And so, I don't look at it as a bad thing. I actually think it's kind of a good thing because it makes it a lot easier to mix and match your stash when it's like maybe you like these 5 dyers and you bought DK from all of them, and you look at it and you see like, oh yeah, these 3 skeins of DK, it's the same base, it's just a different,
Yeah.
dye. Um, so I get a lot from there. And then most of the yarn that I have that has cashmere in it, and also my mohair. No, there's more than that. I'm kind of 50-50 between the one in Virginia, and then there's one in the UK
Okay.
where most of their yarn is, I know it's milled in Italy.
Oh, so you're sourcing from 2 different places.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So my Lux bases,
Mhm.
basically it's like my Lux fingering, my Merino Aran, my mohair, and my cashmere sock come from a place in the UK.
Okay.
And most everything else comes from Virginia.
So you've talked about merino wool, you've
Yeah.
talked about mohair, and so is there not, I know there's absolutely not a llama option. Is there not an alpaca option? Like I have no idea. Like in terms of like what your choices are.
Yeah.
Is that not there?
There are alpaca blends.
Okay.
I have just found I haven't dyed a lot of alpaca blends. I found that superwash merino wool takes the dye the way I want it to.
Mhm.
Um, so for example, for VKL, I'm doing an organic merino wool base that is non-superwash. But what
Cool.
it means, I'm excited to share the base, but what it means is I'm not going to be dyeing my repeatable colors on it because they're not going to look the
Yeah.
way they would on other bases. So it can get a little complicated. The other thing is, like there are some yarns that involve yak or camel, and the base color is actually gray or tan.
Mhm.
And that's really cool too. But again, it's a situation where like if you're trying to dye repeatable colorways, it's going to look different on that. So that means a whole other set of photographs. And yeah, I mean, I still have
I
limited
want to say
space.
welcome to my world of everything is different.
Yeah.
Which, and in a way, it's like, I think it's about what you get used to. Like in the beginning, it was a lot of education on my part to make sure that people understood, like this is not going to be the same the next time, or this is, definitely like an OOAK, because
Yeah.
my bases are, in some instances different. And it's funny because I can understand how if you're used to always being able to get this base, dye it this way,
Hmm.
even though there might be like a slight variance, to get to a place where you're like, okay, this is totally different. Me, I like thrive off of that because in a way, my customers already know you better buy what you need to buy. And we get countless phone calls, and I don't feel bad about it anymore. We try to help people any way we can, but then that teaches them the next time, get what you think you might need, or just embrace what you have, so it's like, it's almost kind of nice in my perspective because I don't get caught up in that rat race of like always trying to make sure I have, XYZ available. And we have certain repeatable colors just because they're easy, like our white picket fence, or then throwing in like our pink clove or things like that. But outside of that, even like our denim, which starts on, like you were saying, a natural fawn base, so when you're not dealing with a white base, like that natural colored base is always going to vary slightly.
Yeah. I
So
think that um what can be challenging for me is I find a lot of customers want to buy the exact same colors that you used in your sample.
yes.
So every time I make a sample, I have to be thinking, do I want to dye these 4 colors for the rest of my life?
It's interesting though that you say
Be
that.
able to retire them. You know what I
No,
mean?
yeah, no, I do. But at the same time, I guess if it's providing any like solace, you know, like in my world, my colors are always changing. So unless a sample is done in white picket fence or like pink clove, it's just weird that I personally don't get caught up in the rat race of sampling my whole life away because I'm so small. Every time I make a sample, that's yarn I can't sell. I can't afford that all the time. And amazingly enough, I'm so thrilled that my customers, you know, can embrace that as well. And maybe that's where you sort of the customers that are, I don't want to say creative enough because I'm not putting down any other customers, but the customers that can look beyond, like they're not looking for a pattern, they've got their own vision. Or like, here's a sample, for instance, like my Little Bird's poncho, I always do it in denim, but that denim always changes. Or, you know, that somehow or other they can look at the sample and they say, oh, I like that. And yes, some people are going to be like, I want it in that color. I'm like, that's great, we don't have that color. But you know, but they and I say that all the time, but they can still look beyond that. And I'm not sure whether that's the customer or whether I resolve to say, I'm not making a flipping sample every time I have a new color. So like, just use your imagination. I'm not sure. I don't know which way it goes, but
I think that you're doing all the right things, and I need to get there, honestly.
And maybe and that's what I guess I'm saying is like, maybe in some way when it's not where you're used to, you know, you think like, this is not possible. They are not going to be able to look at, like, perfect example. I grabbed this with me. Like, they're not going to be able to look at this Shelter Island cowl and be like, okay, I want to make that. And I'm like, well, that's lovely, but this is a farm to yarn collection. So this is a one of a kind. This is pink clove. And like, for instance, I feel like I'm pitching, but like last night we just did this yarn drop. So I'm like, okay, well, look, like this is similar enough if you like the brown and pink, or great, you love this, let's grab other yarns. Like, the funny thing is, that's why of course, as I'm looking, like, because I've got like your kits here, but like, that is why I hate kits, because I'm like, here's the pattern, what's your colorway? Like, what two colors do you want to go together? And we'll help you, you know. So it's and maybe I was forced into that mindset because I don't have the luxury of having consistency. But at the same time, it's interesting, maybe that's my creative outlet, you know, because I don't want to look at the same thing all the time at all. Like it absolutely drives me nuts. And this whole like collabs that we've been doing is so much fun for me because it creates diversity, and I don't have to look at the same thing all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's fun for me too, because it's always like a small batch. So I'm not going through, like, I've done some collaborations where it's like 800 skeins of a tonal color, and it's not fun anymore, you know. But when I do something with you, it's like I can do something, even if whether it's simple or it could be complex, because I only have to do it so much, and I can just be like, that was really fun, and not get to the point of like sweating, you know.
No, absolutely. And I will say, like, too, that is always my way of going into a collaboration, is like, look, here's my yarn. People know my yarn. They know my base. They love that. But I want you to put your aesthetic like on my yarn. And I don't need to micromanage it. Like, I literally am like, I don't care what you do. And I feel like that's my way of allowing somebody else to put their creativity, you know, into it, and not to use that as like a drop. But it was like literally, you know, hours before we were going on tonight, I was texting Stephanie and I was like, look, I mean, I knew I wanted to do something with you again. And it's also been interesting for me, like, full disclosure, I've shifted. Like, we just Zoomed last night with Sally Brandon, who has spun my yarn for 15 plus years. And one of the interesting things of COVID was like, look, we all pivoted, we all survived COVID. But the aftermath of COVID was something I didn't expect. And I've had a number of major pieces of my business where people are like, okay, we survived COVID and now I'm going to do something different with my life, or I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do, which is wonderful. Like people embracing, I've survived and now what's really going to make me happy. And that was something I did not anticipate. So, short story, she decides she wants to get out of spinning, is going through the process of selling the mill, that whole transition, she's training the new people so that I can still have the yarn I want, but production is so slow. So that's where I'm like, okay, how am I going to get creative if I don't have the volume that I want? I've got my white base. Let's just keep getting people, to dye things. And so in preparation for Vogue Knitting Live, that's what I knew I wanted to do. And then since we were coming on tonight, and Vogue Knitting Live is, February this year, which is also different, unusual, but I'm like, Valentine's Day. And one of my favorite things that I did back in COVID was to create a line of Valentine's Day like inspired yarns. And we had so much fun with that. I loved all the names that I came up with. So that's why I was like, hey, are you vending? Because I knew you were going to be super busy, but I really appreciate that you said that you would be willing to do a little like Valentine's, inspired theme for me that I can have for Vogue Knitting Live.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anything that lets me touch pink. It's not all going to be pink though. Don't get me wrong. I have some other ideas, but
No, and that's the
depending how many
thing. Like,
colors we do.
I'm just gonna, we'll talk. I'm just gonna send you the yarn, like whatever, however much, different weights. And again, like I said, that's where I'm just gonna be like, fly with it. Because I thought what was really interesting is what you commented on before. The way I look at these collaborations, even though it's not my aesthetic necessarily, my goal is always, just like you said, if you see gray, it's only to go with the hot pink. Well, for me, I'm like, love the gray. So for everybody that likes a splash of color, and that is my goal, is like,
Yeah.
I get neutrals don't excite people, but I want people to embrace pop of color, complementing a neutral. Like it's just such, I don't know, in my opinion, like a beautiful way to go, as opposed to like color. I like a little bit of color too. I like a little bit of sparkle, so that's, I thought that was perfect when you said that before.
Yeah. Can I answer one of the questions in the
Yeah,
chat?
shoot, because I know I saw before somebody was asking something. To you discuss how customers can use your color library?
Yeah. So the color library is, it's always a work in progress because I come out with new colors and then I have to take the picture just so and upload it and all of that. But the idea is, if you want to browse and see if there's something you like, you might find the name. Like maybe there's a color you really like and now you know the name of it. You can search the shop for that name to see if it's in stock, or if it's not, you can order it dyed to order, or you can ask me, hey, when you're going to be at this event I'm going to, are you planning to have this? You can also, I thought about,
I have to interrupt. So what is the color library?
it's just a page on my website with a bunch of pictures of my current colorways.
Okay.
But they're like big, pretty pictures that you can zoom in and really look at. But what I would say is I have a lot of ideas of things that I would like to do. Like I would love to put a whole thing on pairings, or like 3 colors that look good, or 4 colors that look good together. It's just so much though. So I would say if you're having any question about like what colors look good together, you can always email me to ask, and having the color library as a place to start. Like maybe you like this one particular shade and you want to know, hey, do you have a brown that looks good with this particular purple or something? Then we can have that conversation, and I can, if I have it in stock, I can send you a picture of colors together so you can see them, stuff like that. So it's just kind of the same as how I have a page that just lists all the bases, and I have a lot of bases that I dye. It doesn't mean they're all in stock at all times. But also, I wanted to mention to you, I do have an alpaca silk lace weight base that I use. Mom's actually gonna knit something with that in the, I don't know.
It's so funny. I feel like in my early years, I did a lace weight. And the funny thing is, with all of the more traveling that I do, because at that time I was not utilizing a website. We call it, it's like a baby. It was so fragile, and it was
Yeah.
like I had to give up, because like it was just a tangled mess no matter where I go, because also if people know me and the way that I display my yarns, they're all hung, right? Like they're not twisted up in a skein. And even my fingering weight, it's funny, Karen Polly, who used to work for me, but is still in my life and still helps us out all the time. Whenever we were setting up for a show, she was like, I am not handling the babies. Like she would hate hanging the fingering weight yarns because they just snag on everything. So nonetheless, lace,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it was like dental floss. I couldn't even imagine it.
That happened to me with just my single ply fingering, and I'm not even dealing with it in the hanks the way you are. I would have it skeined, but if I would bring that to, like, let's say 2 trunk shows and it doesn't sell, it starts to look fuzzy.
Yeah.
And I realized that stores carry single ply yarn that's been sitting there for a little while and it gets fuzzy and people still buy it, but it just like bothers me that it
Yeah.
looks fuzzy. So I almost never dye single ply fingering to just have on hand. I'm always going to offer it, but it's going to kind of be like a dyed to order thing, because what am I going to do with this fuzzy skein? I don't feel good putting that out in my booths.
Yeah, in my early days, I did that Lopi yarn. It was like a bulkier single ply. That damn yarn shed more than a dog, because again, when you only have that one ply, now in a fingering weight, you've got more of a twist to it, to help it to hold together. But oh my gosh, I did it in a bulky, so you can imagine how open and airy it was. And you would create something with it and it would just shed so much. And that was one of my like early, I don't want to say mistakes, because you've got to like learn from it, of course, but I'm like, I am never doing that again. It
Yeah,
just didn't have enough to hold it together. So I can certainly appreciate the travel that we do, especially pre-COVID. I feel like, I don't know if things changed for you, but I did not rely on my website hardly at all. And my whole mission was like, I just got to get to the people. I mean, I even drove to Minneapolis for VKL, so it was like wherever I could drive to, I'm going to get to, because I felt like that was the only way I could reach people. And obviously that was a way that you could meet people back then. But for me, the best part of COVID was, pivoting, doing this kind of thing, being able to reach people sitting on my porch, instead of like, again, getting caught up in that rat race and having to run around, and also how it affects your product, right? From
yeah,
packaging it, transporting it. I mean, even in my early days, we sell roving. I would pre-bump the roving into what you call it. It's called a bump if you like pre-package it and roll it into a ball. But then from traveling back and forth, I literally had Nerf balls, because if it didn't sell, it felt it itself. By the time you went to where you were going, coming back, and then kept doing that, I ended up having these Nerf balls that like you couldn't unroll it. So, it's just weird things like that that you learn from, trial and error, I guess. But that's what it's all about, right?
definitely. Yeah.
Well, and I know, so Erin, just answering you, I don't know, I really haven't gotten that far yet, but characteristically for me, in terms of, Erin was asking that whatever is dyed, will it be made available to people that are not at Vogue Knitting Live? So depending on when, I think Vogue Knitting Live, I guess what I was going to say is, if I look at my calendar, so the second Wednesday of every month, just for everybody, actually, we always do community night. So that's kind of like what this is. And we're going to be, yeah, so it's actually going to work out. So the 8th, so February 8th is going to be community night. Whenever I have a community night that is leading up to an event that I'm doing, even though all my stuff's going to be packed, anybody that joins me for community night always has VIP access to anything new. So that would be the name of the game, is join us on February 8th. Because by then, of course, I'll have whatever I have. It's not going to be on my website, because my sole goal is going to be taking it to Vogue Knitting Live. But anybody that's with us gets first crack. Happy to, sell it before it gets to the show floor. And then, of course, anything we have left over, after that. So that would be my answer for that. And yeah, I don't know about you. Are you excited to get back to Vogue Knitting Live?
I have a combination of being the most excited and complete dread.
I was just gonna say there was like a hesitation there. So why the hesitation?
It's just, it's literally the transportation aspect. Like, I gotta go pick up a U-Haul,
Ugh.
load it, drive into Times Square, which I don't know whose favorite place that is to drive, and then back it into the thing and pay these guys to put it on a forklift and pray that it doesn't fall down, and they take it upstairs, and it's just like the load in and load out and the restrictions. I mean,
Yeah.
do you use the cart service? You have to,
Ugh.
right?
So
It won't let us bring our own stuff in. For those of you that don't know, it's like there are like very strict rules as to how you can bring your stuff in and out of the hotel, basically.
yeah, like
That
behind the
stresses me out.
scenes. So this is what and look, I tell the people of Vogue Nating Live because obviously, I mean, many of us that have done it, and I'm very good friends with them, and I'm like, this venue sucks. However, it's the place to be. So you have to be there, but it is barely profitable because it sucks the life out of you. And that's the God's honest truth. And it's not
Yeah.
being negative, it's being realistic. So yeah, I do use the cart. Oddly enough, I use the cart service to get in because once we tried to do like everybody else to be like, I'm not carrying yarn in these bags. And then I will never forget, it was like the lady bellman, she was like in charge of everything, and we're just like started yelling, and then I just crumble. I'm like, I really
Yeah.
like to be a rule follower. I don't like to break the rules. So we have to get in using the cart service, which it's like $200 per this cart, and you try to like throw as much stuff in it as you can while you have somebody else with like rolly suitcases going in through the front door, right? So you don't have to get everything into the cart service, but yet coming
And then you
home.
got to go park the vehicle or get rid of it.
Honestly, I will say that is the only part. And I truly hate that I'm dependent on him. I make my husband drive me in and drop us off. And that's only because he no longer works the show floor with us, because that anxiety, I absolutely hear you. That is like it is too much anxiety for me. But we have a van and we just get in with the van, and then coming home, like going out, I don't know why, but going out, I think that they're just like, we're done with you people. Get out any way you can. And I literally have a bellman. I have his number in my cell phone. I'll share it with you if you like. And I just hit him up and we arrange it. And then we do actually get all of our stuff out with bell carts.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Because you have all of that wood infrastructure that's really nice, right? And it comes apart somewhat.
Well, it actually just all folds,
Yeah,
and we figured out the science to get it all on the bell carts. But I think the point is that it's so weird that we can get out that way and it's a lot cheaper, but we can't get in, that way.
And when you're leaving on the Sunday, everything is like time and a half too, so it costs more to get out. So I did 2 carts going in, 1 cart going out, because I have grid wall.
No, I'm telling you, I'm going to give you my number or we should chat, because you can get out without cart service. Trust me, you can.
All right.
It is easy.
Well, that's the part. And then also,
do you stay in the hotel?
Okay, so when I used to attend and not vend, I did, but I learned that if you stay at a hotel a block away, that's a lot cheaper. You actually get to your room faster by not having to wait for that awful elevator.
So I know.
So I do not stay at the Marriott.
But wait, so I'm curious, and this is like, I realize this has nothing to do with anybody else on here, but what do you do with all of your like boxes, your like spare stash? Like, if you don't have your room there, where is all that?
So I just have to build my grid wall to have like, or put my checkout table or whatever, so there's like a gap behind it for storage. That's all.
Oh my gosh, if you
not
come into my room, because as you know, like you basically go to Vogue Knitting Live with your life. And then if you come up to my room, first of all, there's like 5 of us, like 2 people in each bed, somebody on a floor, or we have a cot. And then all of my boxes, like all of my containers, my boxes, like I don't even think the housekeeping comes in, because I'm sure they can't like even get through the mess. It's like unreal, but right, like it's super expensive, and then you're stuck eating there all weekend, which is super expensive. So,
and you do a double booth too, right?
I actually have done 3 booths in the past. because it's that, I don't know how you see it, it's that weird dynamic of human nature, right? The more people that are in your booth, then the more people come in your booth. And also it's that weird dynamic of like having a smaller booth, people are like, I don't know if I want to be like looked at or paid attention to, or so it's creating that flow. So I did do 3 booths at one point, but I went back down to 2 because it's a cost factor. I mean, it
Yeah.
costs like $5,000. Like,
Yeah.
and guys, it's just interesting to share this. And this is not about griping. I just think it's interesting if you're not behind the scenes, like people have no point of relevance, and not that they should, in terms of what it takes, right, to get there, having enough inventory, and just overall like making it work and have stuff that's exciting and to get people to be there.
Yeah. So that stresses me out a
I was just
lot.
gonna say, I heard you breathe. You're like, yeah, and it is. I mean, that's the awful part, but the fun part is it is such an electric venue. I don't know. Guys, you should like drop in the chat. I mean, if you've been to Vogue Knitting Lab in New York City, if you haven't been, I mean, I think it's comparable to Rhinebeck in terms of people are going to travel to this, right? Because you're also there, you're in New York City, you can go see plays, you can make it a vacation.
Yeah.
And I think that those are the two places, because you don't vend at Rhinebeck, right?
I haven't, it's funny because for 2020, I started filling out the application, not thinking I would get a spot because I hear there's like a waiting list. And then obviously it didn't happen. And so I've done Indie Untangled 3 times, and then I did Cake Palooza the last 2 times, which is kind of nice doing the
Yeah.
Friday event.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, it's exciting. I'm just excited to be back and see people. Personally, it's like putting a shout out to the Ether. I really hope that they do not try to manage the marketplace. I heard kind of like behind the scenes that they were going to like try to, have time frames and people can only come in at certain time frames. And I like just let it roll, just I hope they just let everybody in, and it's just the craziness that it always is. And that's what makes it so exciting. So I'm looking forward to being there. And I don't know, I feel like too, and I've said this to Becky at Clinton Hill Cashmere, so like I feel like maybe we should all, this is just my idea, because look, we're always wanting to like give people reasons like to come visit all of us, and not to say like people that you love and admire, but we all want
Treasure hunt.
That's what I said. Wait,
I'm not in.
Did you I was just gonna say, did somebody put that in, or did you hear that?
No,
or?
I just read your mind.
Yes, no, that's exactly what I said. Well, Becky's right next door to me, but that's what I said. Like if people had a scavenger hunt, that they had a reason, and not a scavenger hunt just to look for something, because I do that. There's another venue that does that, and it's annoying because people come into your booth just looking for something and they have no interest. But honestly, something where you've got to get something from you, you've got to get something from me, you've got to get something from Becky, and then like you get entered into a raffle or something like that. Like,
yeah. Where's your booth? What are you on the same floor as the runway?
Yes, I'm right next
Okay.
to the runway, which is super epic. I love it.
So I'm not going to be far from you. I'm going to be I don't know, but I'm on that floor. That's my first time being on that floor. And so I'm used to going and setting up on Thursday night.
Wow.
But
yeah.
now I got to get my act together.
We'll talk about I was gonna say we'll talk about that too. We'll see.
Yeah, so I'm trying, like I made a sketch of the booth, and I'm like micromanaging. Okay, this grid wall has this exact yarn and this exact formation.
I hear you. I
have it.
I remember in my early days, I like mapped out my booth in my garage because I had no concept of it whatsoever. And I don't know. I mean, I hope, guys, we're not like boring you with this crazy conversation, but it's just, I don't know. It's fun. I mean, we're just talking shop, of course. And, but yes, so I think we are definitely, and look, maybe we can get other people in on this, but I love always, like I was saying last night, I love doing things with people that I feel like connected to, want to support. And it's not that I don't want to support the whole world, but as I was saying last night when I was Zooming with Sally, none of us are getting rich on this, right? And so you want to work with people that you enjoy working with, because it just makes it that much more fun. And that's what it's all about to me. Not everybody's going to become your family. You can't always, have business relations with people that you're connected to, but, at least, if we can enjoy the process, that's what it's all about, because this is what we do. So so I think that'll be great, and I'm excited to be able to work with you as well. And I'm trying to keep track of the chat as well, as far as what's going on. You could, as a prize. We'll have to definitely work on this. So if you guys have any ideas or anything like that, drop it in. I feel like I want to use this time also, speaking of prizes, especially also just being cognizant. I mean, not like I'm going anywhere tonight, but this would be a really good time. I'm literally just gonna go to my house. Honestly, I have a feeling I'm gonna end up on Instagram live at 11 o'clock or 11:30, just to be see who's there. But let's talk a little bit about what we do have for people, because again, my whole reason for doing this was just to provide value, create community, but at the same time, look, we are a small business, and I really always want to support people. And maybe you guys are new to Stephanie, maybe you're not. So why don't you go first and let people know what you have for them, and maybe what they might find on your website if they've never been there before, so that maybe people can take advantage of that and support you.
Sure. Yeah. I just for today, I put a little coupon code on there for today, tomorrow. It's NYE15, and it's 15% off all my ready to ship yarns. So
Now, what does that mean? You kept saying that. Oh,
yeah,
because you do have that. So that's right. Oh, all right. Wait, I have so many questions, but okay. So ready to ship, meaning it's just what's in stock now. Because you also offer people to say hey, I want this, and you'll dye just for them for that.
Yeah, so I don't do it all the time. It really depends when I can fit it into my schedule. But I have a dyed to order section on my
And does
site,
that
and
cost more? I hope it does.
so the way I did that is it does cost more if you're just getting one or two skeins, but if you're getting I'm calling it a sweater quantity, but if you're getting 5 or more skeins, there is a promo code sweater that will take 15% off and actually bring it down a little lower than the normal price.
Okay.
So it's sort of incentive. I'm not really looking for someone, or I'm hoping I'm not going to be getting someone that's going on and getting one each of 20 different colors, because I don't know if you guys all know this, but I'm not dyeing one skein at a time. So anytime I'm dyeing a single skein for somebody, I'm doing at least 3 in the pan. So I could have someone order 20 skeins and have to dye 60 to accommodate it. And it's not wasted, now I have this extra
Then
yarn
that can go in your store, right?
But yeah, but it is more time consuming. So that's the incentive to get more quantity. If you're doing dyed to order, it's a better, price for the customer, and it's more effective for me. But when it comes to the ready to ship, that means I have it here in stock on my shelf, ready to stick it in a package and send it your way. So I'm always looking to incentivize people to get what I have in stock when possible. But I'm focused on, actually, I'm going to show you this I have a spreadsheet of everything I'm dyeing for Vogue. I'm going to show you.
All right, sounds good. So in the meanwhile, while she's going to grab that, I didn't want to derail. I just honestly, because I'm not on her website, had no idea what that meant as far as ready to ship. But just so we don't lose that, so it's NYE 15. And when is that good until?
End of the day tomorrow.
Okay, so awesome.
So this is
better get on it.
This is my dyeing list for for Vogue. So I just kind of work my way. I put the colors in an order that makes sense to me, and I have all the bases across the top and the quantity I need. So I figured it all out, what am I doing kits for? What am I doing individual skeins for? And then I just have to tackle this and get that done.
Now, so if you're doing that, so under normal circumstances, because you're dealing with the base that you're familiar with, you have a recipe. So for the most part, are you able to create your yarns like from one dye lot to the next that they work, or do you still advise people that there's maybe going to always be slight variances? I mean, I really have no idea.
I mean, I feel like it's fairly consistent, but even within the same pan, two skeins right next to each other, there's going to be variation, in particular on like speckly or splotchy kind of colors. So it is a good idea to alternate skeins for the best effect. Do I always do that? Absolutely not. I don't follow my own advice, but if you're looking like, especially if you're doing like a large project, like a whole sweater,
Yeah, but
and
then
let's
they can
say,
alternate, you can just advise people to alternate the skeins.
yeah, yeah.
And
Um,
your kits, I'm curious. So when you were saying about putting kits together, what's your inspiration for putting kits together? Is it based on somebody else's pattern, or is it just like, here's 5 skeins that I think go together? So how do you work that? Because again, everyone knows I hate kits.
yeah. Usually I do have a pattern in mind. Sometimes it'll be something that I have a sample of, maybe something I made or somebody made it for me to have a sample.
Okay.
And so I might have kits in the exact same colors that the sample was made from, and maybe another option too. But I'm planning on doing I like to do 5 skein fade kits, which I don't have a specific project in mind for. There's like a whole list of things you can do with that. Yeah. But like the full skeins. And so I try to have ideas, at least in mind, where if somebody, is drawn to those colors, hey, what do you think I should make with this? I can, list a few pattern ideas.
Now, do you offer patterns with your yarn sales, or are you essentially like, here's the yarn and I can send you where to go?
Yeah,
Or
most of
what
the
to
time
get?
it's separate.
Okay.
Because most of the time it's going to be somebody else's pattern
Right.
that I would rather direct them to the link to go get it themselves. I have a couple patterns that I like, a basic hat pattern, or like there's a shawl pattern I just wrote up, and the only thing that's prevented me from publishing it is that I haven't done the proper photo shoot yet.
Mhm.
And I'm like never in the mood to do that. But I have, a shawl pattern, and a lot of times, and I know other dyers will do this too, we'll put out a pattern for free, because like we're trying to sell the yarn that goes with the pattern, right? And
Your
usually
mom's like,
because we're not
it's
professional,
time.
yeah, whatever, but we're not professional, not like, I am not a professional designer. I do not have an editor, or any of those other steps that like the true full-time designers go through. I'm not going through that, so I don't feel like it's as appropriate for me to necessarily charge for a very basic pattern. But I could say, like, here's a skein of this yarn and a pom-pom, and here's a quick and easy hat pattern that goes with it, and I've knit it a few times, and a few other people knit it and it worked, so like there you go. So
Right,
that's
right.
my version of offering a pattern.
No, and it's just that hack, right? Of like whatever works. So that's why I was
Yeah.
curious as to, because I've even had my own evolution in terms of like, what we offer, patterns that are ours, or we're using other people's, that kind of thing. So what can people find right now ready to ship versus what are your inspirations getting ready for Vogue Native Live?
Well, right now it's really, there's kind of just a random assortment of stuff in the shop. I have a fair amount of DK and fingering weight um skeins, like random skeins. I have a couple of mini kits. I have a couple of Casapinka pattern kits online. Now for Vogue, I'm actually scrolling. I'm sorry for being rude. I'm scrolling looking for the pattern of what I'm wearing so that I can share that, because somebody asked. And I
Sure.
think it's called the Granny Go Round Jumper. Pretty sure. And it's by, I'm gonna find it. Okay, yeah. Granny Go Round Jumper by Iron Lamb. That's what this is. If you scroll really deep in my Instagram, I have a million pictures of it. Okay, so I have a new tonal based loosely on the Pantone color of the year, Viva
Yes.
Magenta,
Yeah.
which is a very red skewing pinky. I'm leaning toward the pink side of it, right? Because it could just be like a pinkish red, but this is my tonal that I came up with. And I'm gonna have a Vogue colorway that might coordinate nicely with that. And then I'm planning on bringing a good assortment of smooth sock, like in a lot of different colors. I'm gonna have like a wall of color on my smooth sock base, and then I'm going to have quite a bit of my luxe fingering merino DK. I'm gonna bring some mohair, and then there will be some other like piles of random bases that I just don't have in mass quantity. And then I'll have my organic merino worsted. Mom is attempting to knit her first sweater out of it in the next 6 weeks to impress everybody. She swatched. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're going to be excited. We just have to not think about all the moving in, moving out, you know, that kind of thing, but it's going to be great. I know I usually say I'm useless because I pretty much spend my whole time just like screaming and hugging people because, you know, I'm always so excited to see people and taking pictures and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm sort of like the defunct employee, you know, always happy to bring my clan with me. And, you know, we just have a great time. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. If I can share, of course, especially for anybody that's not been with us before, we've got a little fun thing, and actually I'm going to tie it in because I've got some yarn from Asylum Fibers as well. So essentially we do 2 open house events every year, and we do it for charity. And this year we were so overwhelmed by the donations that I reached out to people for our holiday open house that we just had like so much. It was ridiculous. I mean, we had over like $2,000 worth of, you know, raffle baskets for people, you know, to help raise money for our charity, which is Camp Hope. So we actually held some stuff aside. And as I started thinking about it, and then this whole 12 Days of Christmas came together, I thought, you know, let's do an online raffle basket for people because there's plenty of people that just can't get here to Long Island and to my farm as much as I would love them to. So we've kept it very VIP in our community nights, which I mentioned. So back in November, we sort of launched it, told people about it. Then we did our community night in December. And then now for the 12 Days of Christmas, there's been an occasional Instagram live where maybe I've dropped it, but essentially I'm not posting it. It's not being made to the general public. So it's just something that I wanted to have to my select group. And then of course, maybe people that are now going and watching the videos on YouTube. So my code is Holiday Life, and that's LIYF for Long Island Yarn and Farm. So it's Holiday Life. That's going to get you 10% off anything on our site. If you've not, thank you so much, Erin, you're amazing. If you've not been on our site before, I mean, we not only have yarn, we are kind of a lifestyle brand, especially right now, everybody's diving into our lanolin skincare line, but we also added a lot of things on for the holidays, just to try to maybe make gift giving. And if you're like me, like I'm still sending people gifts. I'm like, look, it's the holidays. Doesn't matter when you get it, right? So actually I even grabbed, just because one of our cute things that we did this year, we have our Carly cup that a lot of people jumped in on. That was our fundraiser to help our little baby Carly that had a number of surgeries and now has a great quality of life. So we did it as a fundraiser, but honestly, we had a lot of cups left over. And then, so we made like a little Christmas set out of it. So there's marshmallows in there, there's hot cocoa and a candy cane. And we wrapped it all up into like a cute little gift set. So of course we still have stuff like that. So lots of fun things on our site, but Holiday Life is going to get you 10% off anything. That's going to be good through Thursday evening, January 5th. That also is what's going to get you into our raffle drawing. So that's kind of like the VIP access. So for every $10 that you spend using the code Holiday Life, that's the only way you're going to get in for our raffle basket. For every $10 that you spend, you get a ticket put in for this drawing. And we're going to do the drawing live on January 6th, which is our culminating event for a 12 Days of Christmas. So the significance, if you've not heard before, the basket is at this point valued at about $550. It's obviously and definitely knitting inspired. A lot of people that I'm having on as guests have items that we've put into the basket. And so in particular, I made sure these two things were at my fingertips, but we have this merino fingering mini set from Stephanie of Asylum Fibers. And then we also, one of the smooth sock skeins that you were talking about. So autumn pops of color. So this is also in the gift basket, along with things like roving, one of a kind hand woven pouch from Sally from last night. We've got some donations from Clinton Hill Cashmere, who was already with us. We also have Lisa Hoffman, who is going to be with us. So it's kind of partly from all of our guests and then from other people as well. So all in total, this is kind of the basket right here. And Kimberly McLinden also added in a hoagie bag, which is absolutely amazing. So that's going to be added in as well. So that's my offer for you guys. And mine again is good through January 5th. So with that, I just want to also take an opportunity to let you know some of our upcoming guests, for those of you that maybe have not, and I need to do a post to get that out there, but definitely check out my stories. Every day I'm highlighting who our guest is going to be. Every day in my stories, the link is there. Otherwise, you can go to my website, go to About Life, then go to upcoming events, and then that will pull up the calendar. And then if you just click on the date, then a bubble will pop up with the link for the Zoom that night. So tomorrow night, I'm actually super excited. I am pretty positive this is somebody that most of you are not going to know, because it's kind of like my agricultural background, where I'm from. So it's a young couple. They go by Yankee Rock Farm, and Siri and Colin. I don't know that they're married, not that that matters. So I don't think they are. And they basically describe themselves as like a 4-H project gone wild. And they are raising and breeding 2 different breeds of sheep. I think Colin was originally a shearer, but what I love so much is that Siri has become a shearer as well. So as a fellow woman shearer and as a young person, I feel like I see so much of myself in them. When I was younger, their content is always very educational, which is really what I am as well. I don't try to be kitschy. I don't try to be funny. My posts are not comical in that sense. I mean, sometimes they are, that's just because of the animals, but I always am trying to give you guys information, trying to teach you guys. She has very much that same approach. And she does have a small online store, but they're really just kind of gearing and getting going into the fiber end of things. They're just very, very vested in the animals that they breed as quality stock. And the yarn is kind of like a secondary for her. So I'm sure most of you are unfamiliar with them, and super excited to bring them to the forefront and get them some new followers and get people to get to know them a little bit more. So that is what's going to be coming up. And then January 2nd is going to be Lisa Hoffman, dear friend of mine, fellow Vogue Knitting Live vendor, because she's with String Yarns, but she's also one of my primary designers. January 3rd, I'm going to have Christina from Chelsea Yarns, who's another person that I've done collaborations with, and we are going to drop some collaborations that'll be coming up in 2023. January 4th is going to be my friend Amy Kidd from Follow Your Arrow Farm, and that's going to be a yarn drop. I am waiting. That yarn is supposed to get shipped to me by Tuesday. I'm not going to open the box. So we're going to do another unboxing on January 4th. So she's somebody that I shear for. She has a flock of Gotland sheep. So again, a little bit different. Somebody I'm sure you don't know, because she's definitely very grassroots. January 5th is going to be Christy from Birdie Parker Designs. So I wear her bangle all the time. So super excited to have her on, and just a little diversity as well. And then January 6th is going to be our party. So I'm also going to make sure that all of our guests know about it. And so especially Stephanie, if you're not doing anything on Friday, January 6th, you can come back for a culminating party. I'm going to have some people here live with me, and we'll be drawing the raffle live. And then also my unnamed baby llama will be officially named on January 6th drum roll. I know a lot of people waiting for that. And it's just going to be a good time. So that is going to round out our 12 days of Christmas. So I'm just checking the chat to make sure that there aren't any other additional questions. And Stephanie, as we're kind of wrapping up, like, what do you want to leave people with? Any thoughts, any comments, anything else you want to throw in there that you feel like you didn't get a chance to? Of course, I could keep going on forever. My stomach's starting to grumble. I need to get some dinner soon.
Well, no, just thank you guys for showing up for this Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're here and you're our community, and this is how we get to do this thing that we love, is just by people showing up, commenting on a post, whether you bought anything or not, like just being there. That's we all get to do this fun stuff because of the great community that we have. So I wish you all happy new year, and hopefully I'll see many of you in coming events or Zooms.
And I was going to say, for the names that I'm not familiar with, and if you've come to this because of Stephanie's promotion, which I so appreciate, that's what it's all about. I mean, I hope that you guys have had a chance to get to know a little bit more about Stephanie. That was my main thing. Of course, tag along to our videos, and somewhere along the way, you'll get to know more about me. But it's just been something that's been fun and personal, and, just sharing all different kinds of stories. But like Stephanie said, we're doing this because we love it. I have obviously a lot more to carry, in terms of the farm and the animals and things like that, but none of us are getting rich off of it. So we might as well have a hell of a lot of fun while we're doing it. And I honestly am just blown away. I've said it every time, and I'm going to say it again. I actually was afraid to put this out into the world. It was an idea that I had. And my hack is, if I post it on Instagram, then I have to follow through, right? Because you can't not. But I hate that part about, at least me, and I'm sure others, we have these ideas and sometimes we're like afraid to act on them, or at least I am, because you're like, is it going to be received? And, are people going to like it? And the reality is, who cares? And I have to learn to tell myself that even if 2 people showed up, I bet those 2 people would really love it. And my goal when I started this was like, okay, if I just get 10 people, like, because, who wants to feel like a loser, right? I'm like, if I just get 10 people. So especially even on a New Year's Eve, to have as many people as we've had. And, I have people that have been with me every night since the beginning, which is also amazing. So I appreciate the validation from everybody that sometimes we just have to go for it. We have to try our ideas. And even in the end, if it doesn't work, at least we can say we tried. So that's my life lesson. Oh, wait, before I forget, Stephanie, I hate New Year's resolutions, but do you have any resolutions, personally, work-wise, or do you have any goals work-wise or personally for 2023? Because I don't really love resolutions, but we all have to look to the new year and be like, okay, I'm going to do this. So what are yours?
Yeah, I think that overall, and this I think applies across all aspects of life, I want to be more, there's 2 ways of saying it. One way is to say I want to be more choosy in what I do and how I spend my time.
Okay.
The other way to say it is that I want to remember that my time is my own and spend it doing the things I enjoy. So that goes for everything. I have to go to work. Okay, like we all have commitments. But
so does that equate
collaborations
to
and
learning to say no? Meaning
kind of.
Okay. Meaning not to overpromise, or to not feel bad about saying, no, that's not my interest. No, I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's that, and it's also like sometimes I'll have an idea, but I know that idea is going to take so much time, and that means I'm not going to be able to do these other things that I consider to be obligations.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of rethink, is that really an obligation, or is that a self-imposed obligation that I could do without so that I can explore this other thing? So
Good. And what about for Asylum Fibers? Is there anything that you've got cooking, or anything that would be like a business aspiration that you're hoping to accomplish or put out there for 2023?
Well, there's a club that I wanted to do last year and I never made it happen. Partly because I was like moving and stuff, I had to step back a little bit to leave time for life. But I want to do a cashmere club. I have a lot of people that are big fans of my cashmere sock base, and that's not a base that is available as minis. So therefore I never offer it in my countdown calendar or anything like that. But it's so delicious. So I'm thinking of doing like a quarterly cashmere club, which people would choose either the cashmere sock or a cashmere DK. And I need to come up with like my inspiration photos and everything, how I want to handle that. And I'm really interested this year in offering more than one countdown calendar or
Wait, so
slash
I'm
advent.
unfamiliar. Oh, the Advents.
So yeah,
God bless. I
a
have
couple
to
years ago,
say, wait, I have to say God bless, because that was my other thing about coming up with the 12 days of Christmas. There is no way in hell I am that good about pre-planning. So all of you that do these advent calendars, all of you that have these things that you're planning probably in the summer to be able to release it, God bless. That is so not me. I'm like fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl.
yeah, I like, okay, I don't love twisting like 5,000 minis in a matter of realistically like 2 weekends and every night. You know, like it's a thing where it gets planned so far in advance, and then I keep saying yes to everything else, and then I don't even start dyeing it until after Rhinebeck sometimes. So
Yeah.
now I have like 3 weeks to get it in the mail, right? So
Yeah.
I haven't been late on shipping them, but I do need to improve my time management skills to make it a little bit more pleasant of a process. But I'm kind of thinking about this year offering a traditional and actually just calling it an advent, but like a Christmassy advent calendar for people who might like that, which I've never done before.
Wait, so I don't understand what that would mean. What do you mean?
Well, I mean like the colors, because I've
Oh,
been
okay.
offering advents, whether I used to call it advent, then I started calling it countdown calendar because I just didn't think there was any reason that there was no like religious connotation to what I was putting out, right?
Yeah.
So anybody can do it. Yeah, it's 24 minis and an optional full skein if you want. But I'm interested in doing one with like Christmassy colors because I don't usually do that. But I think I want to offer a second option too. So I think I might do like a really psychedelic out there option and then a Christmas option this year, but we'll see. I might have to like put out some polls to see what people are feeling.
Yeah.
There was one year I did one in July, which was really fun. I just don't know like if I have time to do that or not. But yeah.
Cool. Well, I at least just add to that. I mean, for myself, I don't really know that I have personal aspirations. I mean, not to get, I won't dive too much into it, but I mean, I think most people that follow me know, and I can't be alone, because it was really interesting. And I keep saying this sort of mantra in my head that I saw on Instagram. I reposted on my stories that essentially like 2020 changed us, which is true for everybody. 2021 broke us. 2021 broke me like there was no tomorrow. So 2022 has been like about healing, and like literally it really is for me. 2023 is like, okay, I'm starting to feel like I can come back. So I don't have any like major like personal aspirations other than just kind of really feeling like I'm getting back into my own skin and being able to attack things. I think one of the weirdest things for me is like, I've always been a hustler. Like I've just worked and crawled and climbed and scraped to get to where I am, with what I have and the people I have that help me to do it. So many people are like, oh, you're so lucky. I'm like, well, A, I have to pay them. And B, like I worked to get here, and I lost a lot of that. Like I was just tired. I was broke, I just kind of put one foot in front of the other. So I'm finally like feeling that enthusiasm back. This 12 days of Christmas is like super helping me, with that as well. So that's my only, like, I don't have big aspirations personally for 2023 other than just coming back into my own skin and feeling great about that. Work wise, I think one of my major goals is I want to try and sell more fleeces. Because as I think I was alluding to last night, I literally could be on an episode of Hoarders with the amount of garbage bags, but fleeces are inside, kind of thing. Hundreds, like we're talking hundreds. So I definitely want to increase that community. I feel like I want to try to tap into my spinning community, people that are looking to work with fleeces. And then I also want to increase my farm to yarn collection, which for me is my yarns that I create that have like like a carbon footprint that I can say, this is exactly where this comes from, versus my American raised and spun, which are fibers that we are resourcing. They're still American fibers, but we're resourcing them. And I'm able to just on the phone design a yarn. So what that means is I need to be outside skirting my own fibers. So there's a lot more time, involved in that. But I've really scaled down that rat race that I've had in the past. That was the biggest thing for me that COVID was amazing about. It just got me to slow down, not feeling like I had to run in every different direction, because we can do things like this and reach people that way. I know I have another business goal, but that I think really was my big one. I've always had the idea too of doing like, subscriptions or things like that, but I don't want to over set goals for myself. So then where I don't feel like I'm successful, I think I still just need to work on getting my life and my living space organized, and, getting some additional help on board. And then lo and behold, I'll be catapulted into shearing season and the Shear and Share tour again. So, but those are my goals. So I think goals are still good to have. Resolutions are good to have. And all we can do, my favorite saying is give yourself grace. All you can do is try. And if you don't get there, at least if you tried, that's all that matters. We need to not beat ourselves up about the things that we don't do, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know about you guys, but with that, if you got a drink, should we raise a glass? Do you still have your drink left?
Yep. I was surprised you didn't ask me what it was, by the way, because I have a big glass of milk.
Is that really? No, it's not.
No, it's coquito, and I don't even know what culture it comes from. I think a Latin American culture. Yeah, somebody here knows. I know somebody knows.
No, I've been drinking that for like the past couple of nights. I just ran out though, and I was like, I'm not going to my liquor store to get another one. So
it's Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Did you buy that bottle of Picardi coquito? Is that, or did you make your own?
My one of my best friends gives me a bottle that her friend makes every year.
Yeah. Usually every year I get the same thing, and that's the story I was telling. Christopher has an account where that background, they make their own, and I usually get a bottle of it. I did not get it this year. So I will just tell you, if you're enjoying it, Bacardi makes a coquito, and the best part about it, Stephanie, I'm not joking, there's a scratch and sniff on the back of the bottle.
Okay.
When I went to go check out, I looked at the bottle, I said to the guy, I go, is this for real? He's like, I don't know. And I scratched it, and you can smell it, and it smells like coconut. It was like, in case if you wanted to see what it was going to taste like. It was amazing. Yeah. Well, mine is actually very simple. I'm going to go make a fruit drink or something. So this is just Tito's and mango passion flavored seltzer. It's kind of boring, low calorie. Because as I said, the 12 days of Christmas are killing me, because I pretty much, low key have a cocktail with every 12 days of Christmas. So I done the Baileys, I did the coquito. I had to like lighten it up a little bit tonight. So,
all right.
But yeah. Cheers to everybody. I see some of you raising glasses. I cannot thank you guys enough for joining us, and Happy New Year's to everybody. And I'm still going to be around. So drop me some DMs or say hello on Instagram. Stephanie's going to be home as well. So, we can all still kind of hang out afterwards. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. And for those of you that have been with me, I hope you come back again. For those of you that are new, and don't forget Stephanie's coupon code. Don't forget mine as well. Much love to everybody. And let's bring in the new year and hope for bigger and better things. All right, Stephanie, thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Elizabeth. I heard that voice.
All right. Love you guys.
Bye, guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.